The Forgotten Tree. Why did God plant a tree of knowledge of good and evil? If God in His foreknowledge knew that Adam and Eve will eat from the tree of good and evil, then why did He put the tree? Well, once in a while, you must have asked these questions in your Christian life. Perhaps you might have got the answer, or you're still looking for an answer. Many great Christian scholars, theologians, and preachers have come up with great insight and have given a satisfactory answer. Like you, I was also in the quest for the answer to this question. I watched many video sermons, had read many articles, talked with co-believers, and meditated to get the answer. Like others, I also have my insight on this question. Here's what I believe. First, the Bible does not give the straight answer to this question. Why did God put a tree of knowledge of good and evil? But the Bible tells us things around it from which we can assume or interpret God's idea behind putting this tree. Often we call the tree of knowledge of good and evil as the forbidden tree. I believe that we actually cannot answer the question unless we turn our neck towards the first tree, that is, tree of life. The tree of life was mentioned first in the forbidden tree, and I call this tree the forgotten tree. It is very important to focus on the forgotten tree because God in His kindness has planted it for Adam and Eve, because the purpose of the tree of life was life in abundance. Adam and Eve were already in the image of God, and the tree of life was there to make them full of life as God Himself is. The tree of life represents to live eternally with God, who is the creator of our life. Let's get back to the question. If God is omniscient and He knew that Adam and Eve will eat from the tree, then why did He put there? The answer is yes. He knew they would fall and would eat from the tree. Yes, He knew the serpent would come and tempt Eve. Yes, He knew that sin would enter the world. Yes, He knew that His creation would disobey Him. Yes, He knew everything, and in His kindness and love for His creation, He planted a tree of life so they may eat of it and spend eternity with Him. Not only this, God had been so loving to Adam and Eve, even they disobeyed. And the Lord God said in Genesis chapter 3 verse 22-23, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. Wow, this is the loving kindness of God, that He banished them from the garden so they may not eat of the tree of life and live eternally in the fire of hell and destroy the image of God. God knows everything, knows our hearts, and knows our actions despite providing the way out. Since then, people are eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and rejecting and forgetting the tree of life, which is Jesus Christ. John chapter 14 verse 6, Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John chapter 10 verse 10, I have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly. The tree of knowledge of good and evil itself was not bad. It was there so that Adam and Eve would choose freely to eat from the tree of life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was there so they may trust in God's provision, which was the tree of life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was there so they may look beyond the materialistic world and have spiritual abundance from the tree of life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was there, so they may deny their flesh and eat fruit of the Spirit which was in the tree of life. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was there, so they may know that God's commandments are for our betterment. The book of Revelation chapter 22 verse 2 speaks about the restoration of the Garden of Eden, and tree of life will be there for us to eat from it. Let's eat from the forgotten tree.